Hi.
Hello. Quick one today.
Yeah, so back with an episode 2 of Higher States, and we were deciding to talk about masculine, feminine polarities and dynamics. So I think that's really been central to both your and my journey for the last probably 5 years. And on the car ride in, we were really discussing a lot of the ways that manifests. And like you just said then, you can have masculine, feminine, light and shadow, healed, unhealed. There's many different ways of seeing them interplay, and it can be quite confusing sometimes to think, oh, I'm in my unhealed masculine, but wait, is it that or is it the unhealed feminine?
Yeah, it can be difficult to define. And so I think to start with, if we just really cover the basics, and I just want to clarify that this has nothing to do with gender. That we all possess a percentage of masculine and feminine energy. And I was actually saying to someone the other day, it's really interesting to see this play out in same-sex couples because, traditionally, I'm not going to say all the time, but traditionally you can also see people that are same-sex couples, there will be one that carries much more masculine energy, and that tends to attract someone with much more feminine energy.
And a bottom.
A top and a bottom, something for everyone.
Butch and...
Yeah.
Not sure what that
and
other side of that.
Yeah, girly, feminine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's got nothing to do with gender. It's more about the polarity of energy and the way that fits together, and creates almost like a magnet.
Yeah.
At times.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I find is interesting there, so I think, like you said, everyone's got a different ratio of feminine, masculine. Some people leaning more masculine, some people leaning more feminine. Some people even have a pretty even balance between the two of them, where, maybe they're the ones that actually have a bit more of a kind of on the same level type dynamic, where it's less like provider, nurturer, and more, meeting at a similar level, and less polarization and I don't want to say attraction, because like they still have attraction, but there definitely is attraction that occurs when there's a strong polarization between masculine and feminine.
Yeah.
And that could be ancestral in some ways, where a strong male was more able to care for a female, and biologically there's a care for that.
100%. There's an innate need that I believe is primal. For the feminine to seek out the protector. And again, like, not everyone's going to agree with this because, the whole topic of like gender roles, and it is definitely shifting, but I think you can't really deny some of the more ancestral parts of our evolution.
Yeah.
And that is that, literally only in the past few hundred years, have females been able to kind of protect themselves, and laws, and it would have been, you would have had to have for a long time seek out that shelter and have that protection that would have been crucial to this, not only your survival but the survival of your young.
Yeah, and maybe where it started with a physical kind of stature, size, aggression, now it might just have boiled down into the actual essence of masculine. For example, if someone is in their masculine emotionally, if someone starts a discussion or a debate, or verbally attacks someone, they know they're strong enough in themselves that they can hold them at bay. They don't necessarily literally have to have the physical power to defend them, or attack them, but actually having that core masculinity that can defend them emotionally.
It's more nuanced in the modern age,
and so, subtle, and
it's like the masculine, is grounded, is, secure in themselves, can hold space. 'Cause I think that might help just to define some of the attributes. And I've got a little
reference guide
here. So you've got, and people, and you spoke at the start about, wounded versus healed, unhealthy versus healthy, like, you know, whatever kind of fits your frame of reference. But it all kind of means the same.
I'll just interject there as well. I actually heard a concept of the way that this described that basically, so imagine you've got masculine, feminine on two halves of a circle, and then within that you've got healed and unhealed on each. So now we've got 4 quadrants, and then within each of those there's a light and a dark expression. Okay. So the healed masculine has a light and a dark expression. So for example, the dark expression of the healed masculine might be like, you know, the warrior energy, you know, being able to really like get into that kind of primal warrior energy. The light expression of the healed masculine might be, you know, that kind of gentle holding space type energy. And then obviously, you know, you can think about that for each of the other quadrants.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll put something up on the video as well to help with that. So I've just got here like some of the attributes of the wounded masculine. You know, forceful, dominating, manipulative, overthinking, overdoing, controlling, demanding, versus the sacred masculine, present, aware, structured, holding space, discerning, decisive, and has clear purpose.
And I really like that. I do feel drawn to a thinking around unhealed versus divine on like the higher end, because it does seem like there's, you know, and I'm sure like everything, it's on a spectrum, a continuum, where you've got the most wounded version of, say, masculine, which I've definitely seen in some men, where that becomes, or it's created through interactions with females that have hurt them.
Yes.
And then they've applied, oh, that's what females are like. And then they have a rejection of the feminine, which can cause them to go stronger into their masculine. But then there's this aggression and pent up, repressed energy.
Yeah, breeds resentment.
Yeah.
And I think that can, you know, you just touched on the experiences that we have in relationships as adults, but it can also be as simple as, you know, our caregivers and role models. You know, did they role model healthy traits, or were they unhealed in some of, you know, was your mother controlling and manipulative, and so, you know, as a male you might reject some of those feminine traits, and vice versa. I think it's probably more important for a male, you know, growing up to have that male role model, and if that's a negative role model, then, you know, it's quite easy to reject some of those traits.
Yeah, well, for me, I grew up without a male role model, so I had probably a few little pockets of 10 years old for a year, and then 12 years old for a year or two, where there was a masculine influence in my life, and that did instill some benefit, but then also there was probably equal amounts of detriment that I, you know, absorbed through that. I found for me that resulted in me having a lot more feminine qualities, because that's what I was being nurtured and brought up by, and there wasn't so much masculine influence imparting on me that importance and how to cultivate that energy. And even just simply interacting with that energy causes you to expand in that way, because it really wasn't until, you know, the last 5 years or so where I've been exposed to more masculine energy that it started to bring that out in me. And to begin with, that was really confronting, where it felt really uncomfortable, because something I've noticed, because really cool being able to study this with awareness as it was happening, that the unhealed masculine will sometimes, for their own amusement, see something in you that you might be uncomfortable with, and they'll be drawn to it, like psychically, where they'll be like, oh, see you doing that, you know, and you're
exacerbating like, your insecurities,
exactly,
and honing in on it.
And they'll do that from a conscious level of amusement, where they're like, oh, like, you know, they've got this power and they can see someone squirm. But the way that, and I had this happen to me, but the way that I really felt that it was happening at a deeper level was seeing it for the gift that it was, that at some deep level, they were actually helping me grow, because they were actually highlighting my insecurities and bringing up to my awareness. And so I actually saw it as a deep act of love in a lot of ways.
It's really nice when you can have that higher perspective. I think that's really important.
Meanwhile, flash over. You're a fuckwit, Jessa. Thank you. I
Thank
see
you.
you, brother.
Thank you, divine healer. So just touching on some of the feminine trait, it's actually good we've got like some polarity between us because you know, your lived experience of, you know, cultivating a little bit more feminine energy as you were growing up and then trying to step into your masculine. I've had the opposite experience.
Yeah.
And maybe you can just put this up after and show the qualities.
Still read through it.
I won't. Okay, so the wounded feminine, repressed truth, feels unworthy, shame and guilt, weak boundaries, codependent, always apologizing, over explaining, versus the sacred feminine or healthy feminine, expressive, intuitive, connected with love, compassionate, creation, free flowing, and radiant.
Yeah.
So for me, I grew up with a lot of masculine energy. I was a real tomboy when I was younger. You know, just wanted to play sports and hang out with the guys. And I've got 2 older brothers, and used to get teased for it quite a bit in sort of primary school
by girls
days and guys.
Okay,
to be honest, yeah, because you know, at one stage I really rejected my femininity because once I started to develop, you know, this was quite a long time ago in the 90s, mind you. So, you know, I was told, well, you know, you can't play contact sport anymore. And, you know, because I started developing and I developed really young. So I was like, I don't want this. You know, I just want to be a boy and play sports. And, you know, if I grew up in this day and age, who knows what trajectory that would have that would have created. But, you know, in my teenage years, I did sort of embrace my femininity a little bit more. But it's still something that I feel quite uncomfortable with at times. So trying to like balance those out. But I find sometimes when you're trying to activate this energy that you're not comfortable with, you know, it does bring a lot of this wounding to the surface.
Yeah. I think this is the benefit of relationships, and when something's been brought up, you tend to naturally attract your counterpart that's going to help that express through you.
Yeah.
So just on this topic, when I was overseas once and I had my unhealthy feminine energy being called out, basically through the path of spirituality and trying to diminish the ego, I was going through this, what I didn't even realize was feminine energy I was embodying. So let's say there was any time there was like food, one piece left, and like I could feel my body wanting it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to give the other person that. Like, you have it.
People pleasing.
Yeah, but it was in a positive way where I was like consciously being disciplined.
Yeah.
But then allowing others to go ahead of me. No, we can do what you're doing.
Yep.
And really putting others' needs ahead of mine. And I think that was a beneficial path to go.
It's a feminine quality, but a good one.
To express my, you know, to see how deep I could go into that. And I feel like I could get to that point where, yeah, I can put others ahead of me completely. But by one of the people that was going through that with me, they reflected to me, you're too fucking nice. Stop being so fucking nice. And I was like, you know what? They're absolutely right. And that became my mantra for the next few months, where I was like, stop being so nice. And as I felt that deep in my core, it started to awaken the masculine within me. And it was crazy because pretty much from that point, so at that point I was eating vegan. I was carrying, let's say like 25% body fat. From that point, things started to shift naturally. I just started like working out a bit more, started doing jogging. The fat was dropping off me. And I really think the activation of going, stop being so nice, move away from feminine, and embodying the masculine shifted the hormone profile that testosterone raised. And then I was able to step more in the masculine, and the body and its abilities reflected that. And then interestingly, like pretty much at that time, at the peak of that energy flowing, I met a female in the feminine and, you know, was able to hold space for her. So it's really interesting to see, you know, and that was literally 3 months. I've shown you the pictures. I think I had it up on the last one. You can definitely see the energy shift. Yeah,
I think that there is a real and direct influence on your hormones.
And that's a two-way system as well, right? You know, because if you, let's say, doing all the things that would detriment your hormones, you're being sedentary, you're also like through your actions, you're allowing people to walk over you, so you're lacking empowerment. For a male at least, that's going to diminish your testosterone, which further is going to diminish your power and ability to be in your truth and energy.
Yeah, there's probably like a correlation that works both ways.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience a few years ago. I entered into a dynamic with someone who was very much in their masculine, but their unhealthy masculine, and I found myself falling into my feminine. But I really wasn't comfortable with that. I really enjoyed it at the start. Like I was, being quite submissive, letting them take the lead. I was wearing more dresses. Like it was really quite an interesting experience. And like you said, having the awareness at the time and watching this progress. But after about 3 or 4 months, the unhealthy feminine came up, and there was some really clear wounding there, and it was really unnerving what was kind of, coming up, and I felt quite weakened by it, because my masculine energy is that strength and, the setting of boundaries, and, so when it came time where, there was some pretty unappealing dynamics and where, I wasn't being treated right, I felt it was really difficult to set those boundaries, and I kind of lost myself in that quite a bit.
Yeah.
But within that, it allowed me to really delve deep into these wounds or this unhealthy feminine energy and go, okay, well, how can I embody that, but in a way that is of benefit to me and to the people around me? And I found myself soften quite a bit, and that stayed with me.
Yeah.
So that's the beautiful thing about working with this energy. Like, it can be static and dynamic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think many things to say here, but the more that you can embody one aspect of, say, feminine or masculine and go further into it, you've kind of anchored that in. It's then something you can access at any time, and you can come back. And that's the other thing I wanted to add. Like you just said, it can be static or dynamic. You can have a propensity to be mostly masculine or feminine or neutral, but at different times, like a yin yang, it's fluid, and you might need, for example, to be in a workplace where you express your masculine, but then depending on where your balance sits is where you want to come back to for equilibrium. So say for me, I'd imagine myself to have like 60-40, 60% masculine, 40% feminine, at a rough estimation.
Yeah.
So for me, being in a masculine environment like mining and doing that for years on end, I'm not staying true to my actual state of being, my balance of masculine, feminine.
Like your true nature.
No, because I'm going like, okay, I'm being completely masculine, so I'm suppressing the feminine. And then over
to survive.
time... Exactly.
Yeah.
And then over time, that suppressed feminine starts to express in unhealthy ways.
Yes.
Because it's being neglected.
Yeah.
So...
It goes, hey, remember me?
Yeah, exactly. I need love too.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where, let's say I go and do a masculine job for like a day, but then I come back and I meditate and I connect with my inner being, a feminine trait, then that's going to allow balance.
Yep.
Ideally, probably not doing such a hyper masculine role is better for me.
Yeah.
And something where I can have a blend of masculine, feminine, like I'm doing now,
yes.
is going to be sustainable.
Yeah, even for myself, I relate to what you're saying. Like, I've had lots of different jobs, but, recently, before transitioning into the peer work that I do now, I was working as a trade assistant, and I was out on job sites and, playing that masculine role that I really, really enjoyed. But again, as I've kind of softened that energy and, come into my true nature, there is a lot of nurturing there that I'm capable of, that I used to reject. So it's interesting as you sort of shift in these energies, how things around you, whether they be friendships, relationships, jobs, they tend to shift with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's more we could say, but let's keep that for a part 2 potentially.
Yeah, because look, we just wanted to sort of shoot some shit. It was pretty unstructured, so hopefully it's, we've sort of covered the basics enough.
Yeah, I think there'd be a good balance between, the things we've outlined of the fundamentals and the framework, but
Yep.
also our direct experience. So
Yeah.
even if people are aware with these concepts and, you know, the stuff you can find on Google, your and my direct experience and interpretation, I think, is a beneficial thing. So
Yeah, and maybe we could
Let
go
us
into
know.
yeah, drop us a comment. But yeah, maybe next time we could go into like how to actually work with these energies.
yeah,
Because I think it's one thing to understand them, but then you're probably going, well, how do I kind of cultivate this and you know, step into different types of energy and play around with them, which there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of cool stuff. So maybe we could touch on that next time.
for sure. Nice.
Thank you.